So a few months ago, I was on a podcast being interviewed, and they asked me a question that has stuck with me ever since. What would happen if you sat with the discomfort? So throughout your life, there will naturally be things that stress you out. There's going to be people who get on your nerves, school tests, job fires you, etc., etc. And we'll try to numb this pain. We will try to avoid it. We will try to listen to music to block away our thoughts. We will try to party. We'll try to distract ourselves. But what would happen if instead of running from it, you sat with it? You got to know the pain. You got to become familiar with it, unravel why does this thing make me mad? Why do I feel this way? What part of me is this triggering? Why do I feel the need to run from it? Why do I, how am I running from it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Learning how to become comfortable in the discomfort and instead of running from the problem, understand it, unpack it, and solve it at the root. Get your notebooks. This is going to be a good one. So, as some of you may or may not know, I recently finished writing my most recent book, Made for More. Let's get that cord out of the way. And in the process of me writing this book about my life, about the work things I've been through, about trying to help other people improve their mental health, self worth, and confidence, I had to unpack a lot of painful memories. I had to really dig deep into my own mind. And that's a very uncomfortable process. So when I got asked the question, what would happen if you stopped running from the pain and instead learned to understand it? That fueled this book so much. That really led me to think a lot about why do people do this? Because obviously you don't want to feel uncomfortable. When something happens that stresses you out, you want to feel better, which is normal. But when we keep running from the problem rather than address it, it's going to just keep going on and on and on in this infinite cycle. But instead, when we look at why did this make me feel this way? Don't get attached to the problem, don't get attached to the emotion, but notice I'm feeling this. Why? What caused me to feel this way? What triggered this in me? And instead of avoiding it, like running from it, how can I solve the root cause? Somebody may have said something about you, and I'll use the example of shoes. A lot of people will feel very insulted if you say that their shoes are ugly, or their shoes are dirty, or their shoes look cheap. Well, why did that make me feel mad? Because I don't like when people judge the way I look. Well, why do I care about people's judgment of the way I look? Because when I was a kid, people used to make fun of how I look. So when this person insults my shoes, it's actually triggering that inner child version of me that felt disrespected and felt like I was less than because of my clothes. I'm just throwing that example out there as something that people can understand. So when you understand the pain, when you sit with it and you learn to unpack it, you realize that a lot of the stuff that triggers us and makes us mad when we're older, so teenagers, adults, we actually are reacting based on that inner child that we never healed instead of thinking from who we are today. And the way that we can deal with this is sit with it. Ask yourself, why? What part of me is this situation or this person or this thing triggering that's causing me to react rather than respond? Because a reaction is like when somebody pinches you and you're like, "Ah," that's a reaction. Whereas a response is somebody says something, you think about it, and then you respond rather than react. And reactions can lead you to doing some things that are going to be very self destructive. I feel pain, I'm stressed out, I'm sad, so I drink alcohol and, leads to a spiral of alcoholism. Whereas a response is I feel sad. Why? I feel sad because I lost some money, something happened. Okay, what can I do? I can take a deep breath. I can go to the gym. I can journal. I can call a friend. I can respond in a healthy way rather than react in an unhealthy way. And as I was sitting there on that podcast being interviewed and also writing the book, getting on my website, lawrence@lawrenceharris.com, I was thinking a lot about the way that I react, the way that I react to people, when somebody says something I don't like, or when I'm feeling upset. And I noticed a lot about myself. It's interesting how whenever I write a new book, it teaches me so much about myself because I'm peeling back the layers and I had to learn to think really deep about why. Because if I'm going to give advice to other people, I had to take my own advice. And one of the key things that I noticed in myself was that whenever I feel stressed or whenever I feel angry or something gets on my nerves, one of the reactions I have is eating. Not like binge eating or anything like that, but I'll just feel this sudden need to go eat some food. And there's nothing wrong with, eating, obviously. There's nothing wrong with, getting nutrition for your body. But when you do this as a reaction rather than I'm actually hungry and I need to take care of my body, it can become a problem. Other things are the reaction of avoiding. I used to avoid my problems a lot. Like when I was younger, one of the first things I would do when I had a problem is I would just try to avoid it and sweep it under the rug. And if I don't deal with it, it will just go away. Not really. The stuff we don't deal with is just underneath the surface. It's like sweeping crumbs under a rug. You think that, oh, I'm just gonna make it out of sight, out of mind. But no, you sweep the crumbs under the rug, and sooner or later your house becomes infested with roaches and ants. Whereas if you just said, oh, there are crumbs, let me sweep it, let me clean it, now the problem is actually solved. So if you keep avoiding your problems, you're sweeping crumbs under the rug. But if you handle it in a proper and safe way, you're cleaning the house. You are sweeping up. You are keeping your space clean and orderly. And on the note of keeping your space clean and orderly, a reaction that I noticed I have is my desk. It's hard to tell from this angle, but I have a lot of like clutter. There's a lot of stuff over there, stuff over there. And I was thinking about this earlier on how a cluttered mind often creates a cluttered space. And you can look at your external environment and see it's kind of a reflection of you. Like you might have some clothes in the corner of your room. I'm thinking about this because this is actually something in my room right now. Some clothes in the corner of your room that you're like, I'm gonna take those down later. But then later turns into tomorrow, tomorrow turns into next week turns into next month, and they're always there. And it's a small thing. It's just a pair of pants in the corner. But that's symbolic of how there's little things inside of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge. There are these little problems inside of each and every one of us that we don't want to deal with. And you don't have to view it as, oh, it's a problem, but it is something that is holding you back. It's something that is causing problems in your relationships or in your money or in your family dynamics or in your self care or in your time management. There's so many things that we try to avoid because it's uncomfortable. We don't want to sit with it. We don't want to, open that can of worms. We don't want to see it because once we see it, we can't unsee it. So we try to distract ourselves. We'll play music, we'll dance, we'll watch TV. We will do any and everything under the sun to not feel uncomfortable. But the solution to becoming comfortable is to learn why. Why does this thing trigger me? Because if you don't deal with it, it'll just repeat the pattern in a different way. Some people they have the exact same issue in their relationships every single time because they refuse to acknowledge and deal with the thing that's causing it. Maybe the reason why you self-sabotage your relationships has something to do with the relationship you saw between your mom and dad when you were growing up. That's the thing for a lot of people. Maybe the reason why you always spend all your money and you feel the need to buy new stuff is because growing up you were really poor and you are trying to fill that void that your child self had by buying new stuff now. Maybe the reason why you can't sit still in a room for 10 minutes, and by sit still in a room, I mean just be quiet, be in a room where there's no TV, no music, nothing, is because you don't want to acknowledge the thoughts that you have about yourself and about other people. Maybe the reason why you argue all the time with people is because growing up you never felt listened to and you felt like your opinion wasn't valid. So as you got older, you developed the tendency to yell and be argumentative as a way of trying to give your younger self the attention and validation that they wish they had. So it goes deep, but I want to leave you with this simple question. What would happen if you stopped running? What would happen if you stopped avoiding the parts of you that you don't want to acknowledge and you just sat there, learned about it, understood it, and asked yourself why? With that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed, lovely day. Make sure you get a copy of Made for More, Hope, Resilience, and the Strength Within on my website, lawrence@lawrencecharris.com. And if you're a school principal, podcast host, or run a youth organization, you can contact me at lawrence@lawrencecharris.com. And make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, as well as my social medias in the description. Have a good one.